Hey everybody, welcome back. Glad you could be here. Today I want to review a new series on Amazon Prime called Carnival Row. This is one of many fantasy series that Amazon is creating. Two that are very notable are the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan and another show set in the world of Middle-earth by J.R.R. Tolkien. It takes place during the Second Age, prior to The Lord of the Rings. So I'm very excited about those shows, as are many fans. But there is also a lot of worry and angst over how well Amazon is going to adapt these shows. Adapt the books, rather, into these shows. And rightfully so. We've been burned in the past by book adaptations that just did not live up to the books that they were adapted from. So I can see why a lot of fans are worried, and I have my worries as well. But if this show is any indication of Amazon's ability to create quality fantasy content, I have no reason to be worried in the slightest. This show blew me away. The character development, the world building, the structure of the story, it just didn't let up. It was a fantastic show. It takes place during a Victorian era fantasy world that is occupied by both the Fae and by humans. Now, if you're not familiar with the Fae, you may have read fairy tales to your kids or had them read to you in the past, and a lot of them come down to us from Celtic myths from ancient times. So if you like fantasy, I'm not sure why you wouldn't know about the Fae, but that's kind of a general summary of what you can expect. There are pixies with their wings that they fly about the world with. They have a derogatory name given to them. They just call them Pix for short. And then you also have fawns with their ram's horns and hooves for their feet, but human bodies. They are also slurred very often by the term pucks. And just in general, the Fae are oftentimes called critch, which is a racial slander in and of itself. If you are a Fae, a lot of people are going to call you a critch. And even the sound of it just kind of grates on your skin, right? So you can kind of tell that there is a general unease among many humans in this world about living together with the Fae. Some love the Fae and accept them. Some are extremely hateful and antagonistic toward the Fae, very xenophobic. But in most cases, they're just tolerated. Not happily, not unhappily, they're just kind of like, oh, it's a Fae. And that's the world that we fall into. Several years prior to the beginning of the story, there has been a war between a mysterious group known as the Pact and the city called the Burg, which is where most of the action in this story takes place, is in the Burg. The Burgish fought on the side of the Fae, and the Pact fought on their own side with some of the more evil Fae. And during this war, the majority of the peace-loving Fae were extricated from their homes. The Fae world of Anun, the kingdom of Anun, and its main holy city, Tirnanuk, which is where most of the pixies lived, and eventually had to flee their homeland because of the war, and many lost their lives as a result. those who survived have taken refuge in the Burg, which is where the story starts out. And we get introduced to two primary main characters. There are other main characters in the story as well, but two primary, and that is Rycroft Philostrate, who is also known as Philo to most people. He is an inspector in the constabulary, which is the police force, and he has been tasked with solving a string of serial killings. And I mean, these are gruesome, gory serial killings that have taken place. Some Fae have been killed, some humans have been killed, and he has been assigned to the case to apprehend the murderer. And there has also been an otherworldly beast that has been sighted in the tunnels of the Burg that has some ties to this as well. So I won't go into too many details because spoilers! Don't want to go there. But this is an extremely well-crafted mystery and suspense. There's a lot of political intrigue in this setting, specifically centered around Philo, who has some of his own secrets that you will unearth later in the show. So I won't go there. Just know there's more to Philo than meets the eye. The other main character is Vignette. She is a pixie, and the show kind of picks up with her fleeing a battle to try and rescue some of her comrades from the Pact, and she gets back on a boat to go back to the Burg, which is a city she's also taken refuge in, along with many of the Fae. And she ends up reconnecting with Philo, who she has known in the past. I won't go into that, but just the character development in this show just blew me away, specifically with Philo and with Vignette, but with other side characters as well. Just extremely well crafted. The murder mystery especially, because it's in the Victorian era and just grisly, gruesome murders, I felt a very strong Lovecraft vibe to it. So if you like H.P. Lovecraft and the kind of stories that he wrote, I think you're going to feel really at home in this show. And some other things that I liked about it was the way it kept me in suspense the whole show. There were several times that I thought I had it all figured out. I knew who the killer was, and then all of a sudden I didn't. And then it would happen again. I'd think, oh, okay, well, this has got to be the person who did the murders. Nope, it wasn't them. You don't find out until the very last episode of this season who the person behind the murders is, and I love that. That is a very well-crafted mystery story. I don't like shows that are extremely predictable, and this one was not predictable at all. Another thing that I really liked is the way that they handled race in the show. Now, this isn't race as we typically think of it from America's history. In this show, race has nothing to do with the color of your skin. It has everything to do with the type of creature you are. If you are a Fae, prepare to be hated or looked down upon because of the horns on your head or the wings on your back or the fact that you happen to be half horse. If you are anything other than human, prepare to be looked down upon in most cases, and even hated, and in a lot of cases attacked. So racism in this show is handled really, really well, and And it really mirrors a lot of what we deal with today, even though we still see some racism based on the color of skin in our world. It goes even beyond that to general distaste for humans that are different from everybody else, whether it's your sexual orientation or who you love or how many people you love, or whether you have a certain type of mental illness. There's all kinds of reasons that humans hate other humans. And I thought the show handled really well the fact that ultimately it doesn't matter what we look like. We're all the same, and we can all be loved, and we can share our world together. But it also dealt with the flip side of those humans who just can't abide someone who's different in their world. And I thought it handled that tension extremely well. Couple things of note. One thing that I really didn't like about the show was that we didn't learn much about the pact. I would have liked to have known more, but maybe they'll handle that in future seasons, because I have heard it got a second season, so I'm extremely excited to see what they do with it. But we don't really learn a whole lot about them. Another thing is, even though they gave it a satisfying ending, I would have liked to seen the series be longer. It was only 8 episodes, hour-long episodes, so it was satisfying, but I would have liked to have seen more. A couple of things you want to know: this is not for kids, and maybe even not for young teens. There is a lot of graphic, gruesome violence in the show. There's a lot of blood. You will see entrails spilled out on several occasions. There is a lot of nudity. There is a lot of sexual content in the show as well. So don't watch this with kids, or maybe even young teens, depending on your preference. And if you're an adult who doesn't really like that sort of thing, maybe it's not your style of show. But I didn't think it detracted from it in any way. I thought it helped the story even in many respects. But just keep that in mind when you watch the show. I'm not saying that as a detriment to the show by any means, just something to be aware of for your own personal preferences. So if you've seen the show, let me know what you think in the comments. If you haven't seen it, are you interested? What do you think of what I've said? Do you have further questions on some of the things I said? And I would love to answer those questions if I can without being too spoilery. But yeah, interact with me in the comments on the show. Make sure if you enjoyed this video, smash a like on it. Hit subscribe so you get future content from me. And make sure you sign up for notifications if you'd like to get notifications. If you would like to support what I do here on my channel, I would love for you to support me on Patreon. I'll provide the link in the description below so that you can go to my Patreon and sign up there to be a patron for some extra bonuses and future content there. And I highly appreciate it. So, once you've finished this show, make sure to read more books, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.